already talked about it in my talk, that what I ended with was Angle of Repose by Wallace Stegner.
That's right.
But I have to, my mom is a writer. My mom has been hugely influential to me. I mean, I wouldn't be the writer or woman or mother I am without her. So all of her books, I think, have been, and following her and how she approaches writing and characters and emotions and place, that's, I had a lifelong apprenticeship with her. So I would say that all of her work is very influential. But, if I was going to just name one, that might be it. And then the children's book, I know none of you have ever heard of it because there were only about 1,000 of them published. It was called Amelia Rand and the Magic Ring. Do you know it? Yeah. And my grandmother had bought that, I don't know, picked it up at a yard sale or something, and I loved that book so much. And my sister borrowed it and lost it. And then for one of my birthdays where I had a zero that made us much more older, thank you for reminding us, my sister had been searching for that for about 5 years, and when I started to unwrap it, and I saw the back, I just burst into tears. And what was interesting was then my mom, we were out at lunch, and she started reading it out loud as I had heard it as a child. And I could remember every word. Like I started reading it with, just like you do with little kids, how you remember everything. And then when we got to the end, my sister said, "You're just like that girl. You grew up to be like that girl." And so I think that they're books that really influence us and change us in really deep ways.
And that's what I was asking for. And may I ask you, with Carolyn C., Lisa's mother, distinguished author, was there one particular thing that she advised you about in your career or advised you not to do as well, either as a writer in the marketplace?
I would say the number one thing was write 1,000 words a day. That's it.
Yes.
That's her mantra.
And it's in one of her books,
Yes.
and it is. You can't get better advice than that. Write 1,000 words a day. Do you write 1,000 words plus every day when you're not on book tour?
When I'm writing, that's the goal. Sometimes I can do it in about 2 hours, and sometimes it takes me 10.
So it's not about the hours involved, how long you have, let's say, Velcro on your seat. It's about the number of words. And is that just spilling out those words as opposed to editing or revising them? Does that come the next day? I mean, Hemingway talked about leaving your point in the writing exactly where you knew you were going to begin the next day and then go back and revise that to slide you into the next day's work. What is your process?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to hear what everyone else does. I start at the beginning and write to the end, but I actually write my first sentence first. And so I'm always writing towards that emotional place at the end. But I write from the beginning to the end, and I never look back, and I never edit until I get to the end. But I'm sure everybody does it differently.
We're going to find out. So you never look back to the previous day's work. You just keep moving it on. Okay, great.
And I don't write 1,000 words a day. Sometimes long stretches go that I write nothing, but I consider myself doing my work because I'm thinking about the writing. And I always say to my students, the writing, when they say, how long did this, or it's not just confined to my students, how long did it take to write this book? Well, at Home in the World, it took me a month of sitting in the chair and 25 years of not writing that book. My novel Labor Day was written in 10 days, but it doesn't mean that every 10 days I could write Labor Day or any book. Sometimes I'm writing when I'm walking, I'm writing when I'm folding laundry, I'm writing when I'm swimming, and I personally find it a very unnatural thing to sit in a chair for many hours a day.
So where do you actually put the words on paper? Do you recline in the bed like Proust, or do you use a laptop? Are you
I like to
working
stand
longhand?
up. I think this should be more of an athletic endeavor.
It is much better for our
spines. And I have a lot of
spines.
energy, and then you won't fall asleep if you're standing up. I have a stand-up ironing board, and I sometimes have my laptop on that, and it keeps me it keeps the energy going if you have to engage your muscles that way. But it's also different every time. After her, the most recent novel was written in the voice of a very young girl. It's actually an older woman looking back on her age 13, which is a point of view that I've explored a couple of times. And I needed to be a young girl. I played a lot of rock and roll, and I played rock and roll from her era. I think I must have played the song My Sharona 500 times because the novel is set in the summer of 1979, and for those of you who are listening to the radio that summer, you know what the song was. I need to inhabit the world of my characters, and so what they're doing, I place myself in different spots depending, and I create a soundtrack for whoever they are.
So in a sense, you transport the time and place of this moment, so you can create that for the reader. Well,
first of all, for myself, I need to. For me, music is very evocative. The girl was listening to My Sharona. The father was a Dean Martin kind of a dad. He's this Italian-American homicide detective, and I played a lot of Dean Martin too. I wanted him, and I believe that the work will be infused with the kind of energy that I feel when I'm writing. If I'm bored with my book, and this has happened, it's a sure sign I'd better throw it away, but you will be bored with my book. I need to keep have something injected into the story that has me alive. I tend to like to have a character that I'm going to fall in love with and have a little dalliance with that person on the page for as long as the book lasts, and I've fallen in love with the last two male characters in my last two novels. One of them a convict on the run.
So are you referring to Anthony, the father?
The
and
father,
after
of
her,
course.
yes.
I melted for him.
You can't resist Anthony.
Yeah.
You really can't resist him on the page.
And I think you're going to feel that somehow, I'm not going to tell you that as I'm writing, but you're going to feel my love. You're going to feel my excitement about him. I wanted to just make the sexiest guy. He's bad. He's a very flawed guy. He's not bad, but there are no bad and good characters in any of our novels, I think. But he's a guy that happened to speak to a weakness of mine, and I knew that if I loved him, I could make you love him.
I'll also say he had a tender love for women.
Yes.
And you referenced that a number of times in the book.
His
Yes.
ex-wife said of him,
Right.
this is the dad and after
Yes.
her,
Yeah.
said, he's a man who loved women, just too many of them.
Too many of them.
And that line was taken from the novel was very loosely inspired by a real story involving, that I learned from two women who'd attended a memoir workshop of mine, and whose father had been a homicide detective in Marin County during the late 70s. He was the detective in charge of an investigation of some serial killings, and they were haunted by the experience of seeing their father not solve that crime. And they said that their mother had said that about their dad. And if you're a writer, you can spot a good line when you hear it.
And I would say not only is the music visceral, but so is the Italian food, because Anthony, the father, is the perfect man in the sense that he does the cooking whenever he can, whenever he's not pursuing a case. So Mona, tell us about your process, please.
Well, it's hard to talk about because I think less than I write, I'm sort of always rewriting. And for me, like Lisa, I tend to write the first draft, straight through, and then any kind of structuring or ordering I do after I have a whole draft. But I'm really forever rewriting, revising things, trying to. So often I'll write something that's that's a scene that I won't really understand what it's doing until, several drafts later, I'll understand what it was there for, and it'll evoke. For me, writing a book is sort of a process of figuring out why I'm writing that book. So I don't know it till the end, till I've been working on it for quite some time. So some sections sort of come out right, early on. And then other sections I'll rewrite, 70, 80 times. So I'm kind of always rewriting, even things that have been published. I'm sort of, especially in magazines, they're often very different.
Well, writing is rewriting, constant rewriting. I'm curious, do you write sequentially? Lisa talked about starting with the first sentence. Do you write the first chapter the second chapter, or do you sometimes jump to a scene that you really want to write because it's going to be fun for you to write?
I write roughly in order, although the order may change afterwards. And sometimes if I'm not jazzed for a scene that's right in front of me, I'll do a sketch. I'll sort of sketch it and get to the next scene I can write. But I'll know what's. I try and, this is all sort of a shorthand for saying, I try and leave a lot up to the unconscious. I have a great faith in the unconscious for this. It's not something that I think can be successfully sort of intellectually forced or contrived. So I try to, if there's a scene that I'm not really writing at the time, I don't feel, given to write at the moment. I sort of trust that that the moment will come where I will be able to. So.
And does that mean that you put a placeholder in
Yeah,
that
I'll
place?
write some.
You write a little
spare,
note?
I'll write,
Post-it.
three lines which indicate what's going on there, and later on I'll.
And then go back to
Yeah.
it at a certain point. When you do restructure, do you use the tried and true method of cards, or do you use Scrivener on your computer files? What are the actual techniques that you
I don't even know what
use?
Scrivener is. I thought it was a publisher.
No, not Scrivener, Scrivener.
Oh, Scrivener. No,
Okay.
I
A
sort
friend of mine, I didn't know what it was either until 2 weeks ago, and a friend of mine who's a novelist said that's what she's doing. I thought, I better find out about that. And then I'll mention at the luncheon so I sound like I'm really up to date on things. So, did it work? I don't know. I'll find out.
Does anyone use it? I don't use it.
Would that there were a program that taught you, that made it so you could write a novel. I don't think they're going to invent that one.
I like to put everything up on a wall. I like to see it physically.
On cards or
No.
on pages,
Pages.
on bulletin boards? Yes? Okay.
Whiteboard for me.
Whiteboard works
In fact,
beautifully,
a
yeah.
whole wall just painted with whiteboard
Yes,
paint.
yes.
Timelines are, nobody
Yes.
talks about this much, but that's.
Let's talk
I
about
mean,
it. Yeah. Timeline.
That's what one does when one writes a novel. One is just constantly redoing one's timeline. Do you find that? That's just what one spends half one's time doing. Because all of a sudden, somebody is 2 years older or younger than they should be. Or, there's a device that shouldn't be there yet because it wasn't invented, or.
Let's talk a little bit about accessing the unconscious. Do you keep a dream journal? Do you record your dreams? I mean, we all know that that's the unconscious or subconscious is at work when we're sleeping at night. So I was advised one time to keep a dream journal, and now not only do I keep it, I title my dreams when I have time to record them, which is sometimes once a month. But every once in a while I get a doozy, and I'm really glad that I wrote it down. So what are your methods? You meditate, you exercise. What enables you to relax the overactive prefrontal cortex in order to just let the ideas and the feelings and the characters spill forth